Well, I'm thrilled to welcome Asif Haider to Smarchitect Shortcast today. Asif is a visionary AI leader and the driving force behind AXEGENAI, where he helps unlock massive potentials with scalable AI solutions. Interestingly, he's got a track record with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and he's taught over 16,000 students, right, or AI professionals worldwide. Asif brings a deep expertise in AI strategy, MLOps, cybersecurity. We'll talk about that in a minute. But thank you, Asif, for being on my show. Very excited to have you today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be around you.
Absolutely, man. Maybe you can start a little bit about introducing your journey and how you got into this field.
Well, I'll start at high school, go all the way back. Now, I joined the military right out of high school, did 10 years in the
Thank
Air
you for your
Force.
service.
I don't know why they picked me, but I'm glad they let me in. So yeah, it has been a great journey in the Air Force, multiple duty stations overseas. And when I got out, I was under the impression that, physical security, which I used to do work on anti-terrorism work, will be similar to, physical security. Let's do digital security. Why not, right? So try to delve into Linux, and from Linux, start doing some security hackings and things of that nature. Ultimately, what I realized is, data is what we are hacking for, and data is what we're trying to protect. So maybe data is the path forward, and just stumbled into data intelligence. So really realized all the things that I did in the Air Force, a lot of the pain points that we had in the Air Force was really data related. So the passion kind of overcame to say,
It was natural.
it's natural because this is how you solve problems, is with data. So I've been doing data intelligence for the last 10 years, along with developing machine learning solutions and AI solutions of that nature. But my main customers after Air Force mainly was Department of Defense and Department of Army specifically. So, you can imagine all the utilizations of things that are manufactured in the war zone, they come back to the US for remanufacturing purposes. So the supply chain of that is ginormous, to say the
I
least.
can believe. Yeah, I can
So,
imagine.
there's lots of data and lots to learn. And so, yep, that's a little bit about me. But as far as right now, we are so enthusiastic about what's happening in the AI space. And we believe that education is the first step. And that's the only step that makes everything successful after that.
Absolutely. Before I dive into the AI side of the world, I want to ask you this. You've been in the US military. How has that experience influenced you or shaped you both professionally and personally?
You see the people, process, and technology
Hmm.
far differently. Because if in a commercial space, when you have a people, process, and technology, you see technology that's driven by quarter after quarter,
Yeah.
revenue after revenue, where people, process, and technology in the military is a little bit more different. And as you can imagine, it's a little bit more sensitive because life's and death situation that is involved in the military. So
Right.
whatever is being delivered in that process, people are far more passionate or far more considerate and far more conservative, if I may say so. So when it's shaped as both commercial and government side of things, technology is utilized in a different manner and different purposes and different sort of purpose, I would say, right? Sensitivity of it. Yeah. So I would say definitely something you learn and you try to balance between those two technologies.
That is a very interesting perspective. I get the conservativeness, but I also get the focus and some of the other aspects that you mentioned, Asif. Thank you for sharing. Now, let's get into the meat of this. So, you're a guy who builds scalable AI solutions, right? What are some of the key challenges that with this world of LLM and Gen AI that you see with the businesses that you're constantly seeing as a repetitive theme as you're going down your journey?
Yeah, so specifically for artificial intelligence, the repetitive theme is that it's almost not believable how fast you can turn things around,
Amen.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At least your proof of concept, by the time you're speaking on this topic, by the end of the day, you could have a proof of concept or a prototype delivered to you, right?
Yeah.
That almost was impossible, say, for example, with blockchain.
Of course.
Say, for example, a cybersecurity tool that you have to develop inside of an R&D, not in a conference room, right? These days, you can develop this
In
prototypes
your
in the
desktop.
company,
Yeah.
literally in your desktop. You don't need to access a server room somewhere, right?
That's
So
right.
these sort of capabilities really is something that generations of people are kind of in disbelief of because they don't see the value in it. However, when you say scalable, you start seeing how that changes the mindset. You start seeing a thread that goes from that single proof of concept or prototype to say, can we do this here? Can we do this here? If we do all of this, what happens next, right? Because you're scaling, but can you sustain it? So the conversation moves from scaling to sustaining, and those are the threads that are a good positive sign of somebody's mindset that is shifting. So.
I had a very interesting conversation with a senior data leader yesterday, and he was asking me straight up. He's like, Arvind, I agree with you, by the way, that building something has become far more easier than what it was even 2, 3 years ago, leave alone 10 years, 20 years ago. So IT traditionally has been the builders, right? They get the requirements from business and they go back a couple of weeks, spend some time, and then build it and show it to them. A long time ago, this concept of agile was introduced, and agile made it easier. That doesn't make it like that. That just makes it more process easier, right? With all of what's happening now, with AI now building stuff, what's the role of IT in your opinion? How does IT add a strategic lever to a business process?
So let's never put a word into the futures, right? Let's look at the past real quick. In the past, I think the work transformation has happened. So say for example, when Y2K happened, it opened up possibilities of saying, hey, we have all these developers for Y2K. What do we do
Yeah.
with them now? So you see this
Uh-huh.
rush and boom of all sorts of technology that all of a sudden, because you had the people, now you're able to adapt to a process that previously you said, well, I didn't have the people, so I didn't really care. But now that I have the people, what do I do next? Because these people were highly trained into codings and languages that previously that many people weren't trained on. So with artificial intelligence, what do we have to really think of is that we have actually people that are highly trained to carry on their work. But what they are right now is overburdened by so many things that they shouldn't be focused on, right? So say, for example, you're troubleshooting your coding, like you said, well, let the AI handle the troubleshooting, but from the scratch to write a code that's going to really perform, let the AI AI not be involved in that. Let the human intelligence take that, right? So you have this IT systems guys that are, in the network, on the database level, infrastructure level, however you want to label them, they really have lots of potential to focus on something very specific where the human in the loop or the human intelligence is required and let the artificial intelligence do the rest. So what does the IT folks do next is up to the leadership to kind of think through like, okay, what are we not seeing that we can utilize or repurpose these individuals, reskill them or upskill them for the purposes of, let's say, a bigger, better AI, safe, secure, and private AI. However you want to label it, you always have this people, process, and technology that's not going to go away. We just have to reinvent the process one more time, right? We always do that. And I will just leave it at that because there's no way of predicting futures.
No, this is really well said. I think what the answer you just stated, actually, when I'm thinking about it, can apply to any role in any business, right? What they've done in the past might be mundane enough that you can outsource that work to AI. And then you can now, as a leader, think about how I can utilize such a smart person who's just doing straight up coding for no value at all and use that person to a more strategic role. This is fascinating, man. Really, really well said. Now, I mean, I know you're a use case guy. So you help a lot of businesses collect and define use cases and identify them as well. So how do you do that? Is there a framework or a process you follow, the people process, methodology that you just stated?
Yeah, well, of course, the one that you laughed about last time is KISS, right? Not
Yes,
keep it simple and stupid, but keep it interoperable, scalable, and sustainable.
yes.
Because once you find something scalable, you want to be able to sustain it. Just because you can scale it doesn't mean you can sustain it. The cost overruns it, right? And the reason it's scalable is because it's interoperability. So you always look for the user ecosystem, excuse me, the use case ecosystem, and then say, how do I draw the map strategically for next 5 years to say, if I'm here today with my use case, I have 200 of them, but I'm only going to develop one. And through version iterations in that
Iterations.
process, I will continuously develop more use cases. But these use cases, you don't want to be very random with, right? if you know you're not going to be able to get the budget for that use case, don't even put that on your list for next 5 months.
Yes,
Maybe in
yes,
5 years, but not 5 months, right?
yes.
So, because what happens with the budget, the CFOs are going to write budgets or write checks based on your ability to make that use case good with the return on investment, financially justifiable, so many other topics that comes with it. So KISS is the formula. But if you think about the process of, your data, right? You can never go wrong because all three aspects of your use cases are data, right? One is that data is just sitting there, data is being processed, and data is being used. Who's using it? How are they using it? How is the return on investments happening? Should tell you right away how to go about researching your use cases. But one of the main things that I always say, it's not really a framework, it's just a mindset that you have to have, is that the best use case that you have found, you have to reverse engineer it to the most basic version of that use case. It's sort of like raising a child. I think me and you are parents, so we can relate to that.
Yes, yes. I was thinking peeling the layers of onion, as you will, right? So you go deeper, deeper, deeper to the most basic core level, where you have, again, interoperable, sustainable, and scalable solution, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's very
So this
difficult
is
to do, but it's
very
it's
difficult.
it's necessary because we've seen it over and over how they fail because they went for that shiny thing on top of the mountain called the use case that everybody loves, right?
Right, right. So, as if you've worked with some big names like U.S. Army and Accenture, coming from a very large background supporting Fortune 500 companies, I don't know if U.S. Army is Fortune 500 or not, but given the scale, I would assume so. Has that shaped your thinking at all when it comes to designing a use case or understanding the scalability? One of your important goals in KISS is scalability, right? So, give me a little bit of your perspective on that.
So again, it goes back to what we have known and what we have to know, right? So kind of wanted to give you a mindset here is that there's a lot of known knowns, and that's what we invest a lot of money into. And there are known unknowns, and there is unknown unknowns. So AI at this point is in that unknown unknown, and I know I'm about to defend myself why it is an unknown. We don't know the future of AI because
Yeah,
of quantum computing is down the path, right?
right.
So we don't know how powerful AI will become, but if it were to become so powerful, where will be the bottleneck that quantum computing, if it's not there yet, AI might not have a transition into quantum computing space. So even if you have investment to AI, you might have a choke point because you're not able to process that much data and quantum computing is nowhere near available, right? So when you think about it, that perspective from the Fortune 500's mindset, their worry is that yes, AI is cool, but I have to look at it from a 5-year life cycle. I have to look at it from the 10-year life cycle. Longevity of the success is what we have to look for, and can we scale and sustain it over the next years to come? So when it comes to big enterprises and small businesses, we all agree, right? AI is great, but where's the bottleneck? Where's the choke point of the hardware? Where is that data vulnerability that we're not thinking about with cybersecurity? So there's a mind shift that needs to happen. I would say one key things that you have to shift is that in IT, you have a 5-year life cycle and you say, this is how much we have spent so far. But with AI, you really have to think about a poor quality AI that's been delivered to you. You have to mature it over time. And by the time you mature it, then you start calculating your ROI. It's not from day one, but rather say day 300 in some cases. Day 30 is perfect, but day 300 is most likely the amount of patience you have to have. Kind of going back to that reference of raising a child, right? So this mind shift is something that I would say is a hard walk to do, because you're practicing the fact that you still have to maintain all of your services, enterprise apps, next 5 years to come, and you cannot just jump into AI and have AI take over all of it, right? So it's a problem that everybody has, but especially for enterprises, those are not type of risks that you want to go down. And try it again. Let's try that again.
Okay. I agree with your thought wholeheartedly. Now, you bring up a good point. 2 years ago, November 2022, there was ChatGPT. 1 month ago, there was DeepSeek. Now we're talking about quantum. So large language model is quickly becoming small language model, is quickly becoming quantum, is going to quickly become who knows what, synthetic robots maybe, right? So it's changing so fast. How can a Fortune 500 company bet on the next 5 years? Nobody knows what's going to happen. So
this requires sort of that emotional intelligence, right? You kind of have to have a heart to heart. You can't just say all business here, right? You have to have a heart to heart. You need some changes that is not that easy to make, right? But of course, heart to heart is the first conversation you want to have. So what happens when you do artificial intelligence, let's say endeavor or journey, is you actually get a inside look into who it is you are, right?
Okay.
That means where's my data? Where's that data structured? How is it structured? You know what? If the output is not AI, at least it's business intelligence. At least it's a business intelligence that is far smarter and far easier to pull with a single thread to say, if I pull this string, all the toys are going to come, right?
Needle in a
And
haystack
that's what
kind
a
of
business owners needs to understand, that that's what AI does. Your AI journey leads you into a better data structure and better visibility and transparency and auditability, explainability, so many things that comes with it. So this is not necessarily an AI journey that ends in one spot, right? It's a journey that's total of your business intelligence. And at best, if you don't have artificial intelligence, you'll get a cognitive intelligence. And that cognitive intelligence drives you into better decision making and faster decision making. So as a team, not only did you unite around the team and the data, that team is able to make faster and better decisions. So the third component of it, if you actually have a cognitive intelligence that is driven by the system, the hardware, now is to make a decision, you have your gut instinct, you have your team's instinct, and you have a hardware that can also tell you your team is also right. But here's a little bit more input and tweaking to that. So see, what happens with AI, it doesn't necessarily have to stop with AI. You can just move on to some more improved technology like cognitive intelligence.
strategic decisioning. No, I agree with you 100%. Let's jump into your t-shirt. I'm very interested to know more about it. So when we had this conversation earlier, you were talking about you now being a Sec AI Plus professional. What does that mean? Why is it important now?
So in order for the standards to be met for CompTIA to write their test, they have to have subject matter experts come in and write the test from the industry. Because the industry hiring managers will rely on the fact that people that they're hiring, they have went through a rigorous study in order to answer the questions in the certification. So when you have to test those individuals that have studied for a position, say a security role or security professions with AI mixed to it, how do we test them, right? So CompTIAs have to go out and find these subject matter experts to say, you are subject matter experts in ethical hacking or cybersecurity, and you also know about AI, right? So there was about room full of 10 people, I would say, 9 to 10 people. And those 9 to 10 people came from all over the world, right? They're all around the industries, commercial, military, government, AWS, they were all there. So what we had to do is write a certification from the scratch, right? Cannot have our previous biases of, hey, this is not for somebody who's been in the industry for 10 years. This is a certification for somebody who's been in the industry for this specific many years. So you really have to work with other 9 subject matter experts to write the best question possible that meets the industry's need, specifically the hiring manager's need, right? But also keeping in mind that person who's studying and testing for these, they are also, getting a new career, a new job based on the certifications. So how do you make it fair and balanced, right? So it's been a great experience with me because previously I wrote CompTIA's certification for databases, right? So I'm also listed as their database subject matter expert, but now I'm their AI subject matter experts on security as well. One thing I will tell you, the biggest takeaway has been that if you think you know anything, always tell yourself that you don't know enough. Because that's what happens when you're in a room full of subject matter experts, that you just don't know enough. Because what they have dealt with in Ireland and Australia is far different than what we have dealt with in the US. And always learn from other people that have already went through the process to say, maybe I don't want to go down the same rabbit hole. I have to pick my own rabbit hole. So yeah, it's been a great associating with CompTIA, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
First of all, congratulations. And I know it's one of the highest honors for cybersecurity professionals such as yourself. So again, many congratulations. Talking about cybersecurity. So, you had mentioned a lot about these unknown unknowns. I had another guest in my podcast previously who had talked a lot about the importance of cybersecurity, whether it's, the black hat hacking and so on and so forth. I had to ask you this, not looking at a crystal ball, what does the next 2 to 3 years look like? I mean, AI is moving with such a fast pace. We don't know. Of course, if good actors are using AI, I would assume bad actors are using more. They do a better job at using it.
Right.
How do you avoid it? What are some of the best practices? What are you seeing in the future?
Well, I dare say it's a $1 trillion industry for the bad actors, right? Bad actors have a lot of incentives to make that, happen for them by trying nonstop 365 days a year. So that they're making money in the places where, a few dollars here and there takes them, great distance, right? So the motivation and incentives are far higher to be the bad actor, right? And for the good actors not to adopt to the same technology as the bad actors means that good actors are really falling behind in the ways to create a defensive posture, at minimum deflecting, right? So when it comes to deflection, one of the numbers that I will tell you right now, and you can look that up, is about 150 million attacks per day that comes through in AWS's radar. That was a few years ago. That was literally probably
Few years?
back in 2024. Today, as of today, with, let's say, for example, bad actors' ability to automate attacks, bad actors' ability to search for the vulnerabilities, it's about 700 million attacks a day.
A day. Wow.
And when I heard that number, I said, well, I have to really verify it. So, it's something that you can verify for yourself, and anybody who's listening, they can verify for themselves. But the point is, it's massive, and it's not going to slow down for the next 2 years, because the bad actors will just ramp up this process of, if I can find a hole, I have to find the next hole and hole after that. So that way I can know, if I pull this thread specifically, I'll make a few dollars here, but over here I'll make thousands of dollars. So you have to really get to the deflective mode of saying, get to the next hole. There's nothing to see here, right? So you can imagine honeypots and so many other tools that we have in cybersecurity, but you really have to get creative, because bad actors are not looking for honeypots anymore. Bad actors are doing social engineering. So we can imagine deepfake on a Zoom call. And in the Zoom call, they're playing off as a CFO or CIO to say, the
Approve
great
a $100
example,
million budget. Yeah.
exactly. The great example was that $25 million check somebody wrote based off of a Zoom call. He thought everybody nodded their head and said, yeah, write that check. Everybody was fake, right? So when it comes to these sort of complexity of, you cannot defend yourself outside of your network, and inside of your network, you're letting social engineering, things of that nature happen. It's a really tough world. Now, the solutions to all of this is, I don't know. Right? It's an unknown. Whatever you have to do to protect yourself, but you still always have to maintain the fact that just because of cybersecurity, you cannot shut down the shop or do stuff in very limited manner. You still have to be dynamic. You still have to be flexible enough with your data, so it stays confidential, it has good integrity, and it has a good availability. And this availability becomes really a troublesome ways of doing business, because a lot of the data are not available everywhere it's supposed to be, and that shrinks the business actually. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, earlier I mentioned that you don't want to have a bus stop called artificial intelligence. Right. It's to get there, you get lots of the benefits of making sure that availability of AI is happening, you have good availability of your data, and of course that's what happens when you're doing that AI journey, right? You always look at your data, create that data structure very well, make sure those data have good return on investment, but another word for it is ROD, return on data, right? Yeah. So you always want to create the data portfolio very carefully, mind your business intelligence heavily, but develop that data portfolio, because if you're not thinking about data portfolio right now, I can list you few Fortune 10 companies that are nothing but data companies. And that will expand and spread for next 5-10 years, because those data are so valuable, but your data will also become associated with those data, and they'll become valuable as well. Because the aggregation of those data that we don't have, you are part of that equation. You have to have a good data portfolio for that purposes.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the Gartner analysts said basically data on an ongoing basis is going to be way more valuable than the products and services that you operate with. So if anything, I agree with your statement. I'm fascinated by the comment you made earlier. Was it 800 million a day?
A day. That's right.
Oh, that is
I
a
know. I
lot.
have to
So
pause and think about that for a second. That's a lot of numbers.
first of all, I didn't hear that correctly, I thought, but now I reset it. Oh my God. Well, so you've taught 16,000 professionals worldwide, and I assume some of them are students too.
Through association, and not all of them.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
handle that many students at once.
Yeah, right. My point, yeah, I was like, wow, that's a lot. So you're an educator by nature, and I can clearly see that you're a very good storyteller too, right? How's that going? What are you teaching them? Is the cybersecurity one of your specialty areas? Are you mixing them into a little bit of data, a little bit of AI, a little bit of cybersecurity? What's going on there?
Well, you really have to understand the value of data. Otherwise, whatever journey of AI you get into, you're going to have to be able to say, how far along am I, and is it worth the rest of the journey, right? Because as you can tell, mile one of the journey is always exciting because you have everything
Sure.
you need right there. But by the time you get to mile 30, you're kind of dehydrated and hungry, and now you're suffocating, right? So you want to get to, last mile, and the last mile journey is really a lot about your emotional intelligence because you have to be dynamic and flexible, persistent, consistent. Just throw the salad bowl of words here, right?
For
You have to
sure.
have lots of these emotional intelligence to say, I've always had a plan for any disruption that will happen. And how do I circumvent around that disruption is your smart way of doing the journey, right? So artificial intelligence, yeah, you can teach artificial intelligence over the decades and years to come because it will continue to change because artificial intelligence is not a technology, it's a process. The process always shifts, and so does the technology. The process doesn't shift, technology doesn't change. So when I have to teach anything to anybody, I think the people are the biggest driver of the process, and these people have to have a good emotional intelligence. So if Arvind and me are in the room, and Arvind hires me as a person to work for him, does Arvind have the emotional intelligence to know that I hired him for a reason? I will let him do the job. And part of that doing the job is for me to challenge Arvind to actually say, I know how you're thinking, but that's not how things works, right? Do you see that dynamic, that ability
Yes.
to speak up to the power? Just because you wrote my check doesn't mean I shouldn't be challenging you. So I have to have the emotional intelligence to challenge you, and it's at least drive myself towards a use case that I'm going to be successful, and you're going to make some money off of it, right? So
I
these
think
emotional
you're
intelligence
spot
are
on.
very important, and I'm working on those topics as well.
100%. So tell me if I'm wrong. I feel that the leadership, emotional intelligence is extremely important. But when you're in the lines, right? I think your competitive intelligence is as important because for you to challenge your leader, you really have to be the subject matter expert, which most of the people in the line level are. But they don't have that command, if you will, to go and challenge their boss and saying, you know what? I don't need to say you're wrong, but I need to say, you know what? Have you thought about it this way? That consultative ability, I'm assuming that's a part of your curriculum as well, your
Yeah.
education.
Yeah, you always set the baseline with the leadership, right? Because if the leadership doesn't create that environment is not going to be developed by somebody you hire. You have to be able to have that emotional intelligence to say that, well, day and age has changed. I'm not hiring employees anymore. I'm hiring an employee to run my AI agent, right? My AI agent does the work. This employee here does something specifically for the AI agent to be successful. Or at best, it's called monitoring and troubleshooting, right? You're able to monitor this AI agent's activity, and you're monitoring hundreds of AI agents' activity. So when it comes to the human in the loop and the human's ability to make decisions, you're not hiring an employee anymore. You're hiring a partner that you have this trust to say, we're a group of 10, but we work like we have 1,000 employees. Is that the same environment that I want to run like I did 10, 20 years ago? Or do I want to change my mind saying, there's a bunch of AI agents that runs my business. I just have few employees that are literally my partner level because they have to enable these AI agents to work. So
Man,
yeah, I think shift is coming, and that comes with a lot of these ability to envision how you will be the leader in the future.
I cannot believe you and I are having these conversations. First of all, that we're now talking about 10 people managing 1,000 agents, which are all AI agents. And second of all, I agree with your vision. I'm seeing this firsthand with a number of very large and small companies. I think smaller companies have easier adoption mechanism or cope-up mechanism, I should say. Larger companies, it comes with a cost, a very large cost, right? Labor cost, actual financial cost. There's a lot of issues with this. But fascinating conversation, Asif. Is there, I can go on and on and on. You bring up so many good points, but I've only got limited time into my podcast, man. Anything else that I've missed you want to highlight? What does the future look like based on what you've talked about so far for you?
If the future that I see a problem, and that problem doesn't exist, and a different problem does, that's the future that I want to be in. Because that means that problem that we envisioned 10 years ago, we haven't solved it. And 10 years later, we're still dealing with it. I don't want to live in that future. I want to live in a future with different sorts of problems that we didn't have 10 years ago, right? So the ability to, move up with technology means that technology removes itself in front of us and kind of goes behind us, right? The silent AI-like capability, the comfort technology that we all should strive for. Minimum amount of hardware, but maximum amount of data processing, right? I'll give you one example because of this AI talk that happens with, there's a single tree called ChatGPT and everybody loses their mind, but they're missing the total forest behind it, right? So don't miss the forest for the tree, right? So look at the whole AI ecosystem and see where it is that you can perform the best. When you look at AI from the use case perspective, it's really difficult to say where does it end up in. I'll give you a few revolutionary topics that you can look into, which is that some things a human body cannot achieve because we're too big and we cannot mess with atoms and molecules. But if we're able to mess with molecules, we can do things far differently in our body than previously possible, right? So one of them is called changing the molecule inside of your body using a machine learning tool. Those are something that human bodies cannot do, but in machine learning, other than machine learning, nothing else can do it, right? So there's a robotic process to it. There's a process of computer vision. There's a process of changing the molecule. That's just one example, right? Very high level to very specific level.
Yeah.
If you want to go even further, you can talk about water vaporization, right? If you can vaporize water differently than we do today, trust me, the businesses that you're thinking about today, that what's going to happen to them in the future, well, they won't even exist, not because of AI, but just the way we vaporize water, right?
Yeah.
So I always have that mindset. It's not that AI is going to change it, but the AI research will change because we'll develop things based on AI research, and this development will enable us to usher into a new sort of ways that we cannot fathom. But we'll always have a problem that we didn't have 10 years ago. So I'll just leave it at that. But AI is a spectrum. Don't get lost in the trees, right? Think about the forest.
Fascinating conversation, Asif. You've left a lot to think about. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for being in my Smarchitect Shortcast. I look forward seeing great things from you.
And always a pleasure to hang out with you, sir.
Thank you.